A rabbit can watch a hawk drop directly out of the sky behind its own head without turning around. Its eyes are positioned to cover nearly the entire 360 degrees around its body at once. And the one place in all of that coverage where a rabbit is almost completely blind is the small patch of space directly under its own nose. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a rabbit's eyes, ears, and legs work together as a single predator detection system. The specific named strategy that lets a rabbit consistently escape animals that can outrun it in a straight line, and the honest, research-backed answer to the question in the title, because it's both yes and not remotely what you think smart means. Here's misconception number 1, and it's less about behavior than about basic classification. Most people assume a rabbit is a rodent in the same broad category as a mouse, a squirrel, or a rat. It isn't. Rabbits belong to an entirely separate order of mammals called lagomorpha, alongside hares and pikas, and the two lineages split apart somewhere between 55 and 65 million years ago. The giveaway is in the mouth. Rodents have exactly one pair of upper incisors. Lagomorphs have two, a second, smaller pair of peg teeth tucked directly behind the main front teeth, doing quiet work keeping the main incisors aligned as they wear down. For decades, naturalists lumped rabbits in with rodents anyway, going by superficial resemblance, before the tooth difference got them formally moved into their own order. A rabbit looks like a rodent that skipped several evolutionary chapters. It isn't one, which gets us to the real subject of this video. Not what a rabbit is related to, but what a rabbit is built to do, every waking second of its life, which is avoid becoming lunch. Start with the eyes. A rabbit's eyes sit high on the sides of its skull, giving it a field of view somewhere between 340 and 360 degrees. Coverage so complete that it only has two real gaps, a narrow blind spot right in front of its nose, and a second one directly behind its head. Everything else, above, beside, and mostly behind the rabbit, is visible without moving a muscle. The trade-off is depth perception. Because the eyes point outward instead of forward, a rabbit only gets 10 to 30 degrees of true binocular overlap, the region where both eyes see the same thing and the brain can judge distance precisely. Rabbits partly compensate by bobbing their heads side to side, a behavior called parallaxing, which lets the brain compare two slightly different snapshots of the same object to estimate how far away it is. The same principle behind a pigeon's head bob or a chameleon's independently swiveling eyes. It's a real trade-off, not a design flaw. A predator like a fox or a hawk needs sharp binocular depth perception pointed forward to judge exactly when to strike, because striking is its entire strategy. A rabbit needs the opposite, maximum coverage, minimum precision, because its strategy was never to strike anything. Every predator-prey pair on the planet ends up trading the same currency in opposite directions. The ears do a version of the same job, for sound instead of light. Each ear can rotate independently through roughly 270 degrees, controlled by more than 20 separate muscles, letting a rabbit aim one ear at a rustle to its left and the other at a footstep to its right at the same moment, without turning its head or breaking cover. Combined, the eyes and ears form something closer to a standing radar installation than a simple pair of senses. Near total visual coverage, independently steerable directional hearing, and virtually none of it requires the rabbit to move a position that might give away where it's hiding. Which brings up misconception number 2, that a prey animal like a rabbit survives mostly through luck and jumpiness, startling and bolting at random. What the eyes and ears actually represent is closer to a dedicated detection system, running continuously, purpose-built by a few million years of the alternative not surviving to reproduce. Twitchy isn't the right word for it. Instrumented is closer. Hold on to that idea, because it's most of the answer to this video's title, just not the part that explains the running yet. A rabbit doesn't outsmart a fox by being smarter. It outsmarts it by being less predictable, and that's a kind of smart no brain has to think about. The senses only explain detection. For the escape itself, the story moves to the legs. None of that, on its own, explains how a rabbit that a fox, coyote, or hawk can often outrun in a straight line, manages to get away as often as it does. And that's where the third misconception lives, the one baked into how zigzagging looks to a human watching it happen. It looks like panic, an animal too scared to run in a straight line, wasting motion out of pure fear. Biologists have a name for that exact movement pattern, and panic isn't it. In 1970, two researchers named Peter Driver and David Humphreys published a paper in the journal Oecologia describing what they called protean behaviour, named after Proteus, the shape-shifting sea god of Greek myth who escaped capture by constantly changing form. Protean behaviour is movement specifically unsystematic enough that a predator, however fast or however good at predicting a straight-line chase, can't reliably guess where the prey's body will be a half second from now. Zigzagging, sudden stops, direction reversals, vertical leaps mid-run, all of it. The point isn't randomness for its own sake. It's making the rabbit's position, a fraction of a second in the future, mathematically harder for a chasing brain to solve, whether that chasing brain belongs to a fox or an AI-controlled interceptor. Quick pause here, because it's worth being specific about a fact that gets left vague in the rabbit zigzag version of this story. Exactly how good rabbits and hares actually are at it. Measured. And there's a specific number coming up that made even researchers double-check their footage. A team studying cursorial hares, the sprinting open ground specialists like jackrabbits, technically hares rather than true rabbits, used high-speed video to measure the sharpest evasive turns hares make under real pursuit, and published the results in the journal Mammalian Biology. Their most extreme recorded turn was close to 180 degrees, executed in about 0.4 of a second. In another recorded case, a European hare fleeing a simulated predator at around 10 meters per second, roughly 22 miles per hour, carved a 60-degree turn on a radius of just 7 meters, without slowing down first. Mechanically, the turn works in two overlapping motions. The hindquarters swing outward almost passively, like the back end of a car sliding through a corner, while the front half of the body actively rotates inward, and then the hind legs drive a fresh burst of thrust in the new direction. The researchers noted 3 separate advantages that single maneuver buys a hare. It immediately lowers the odds of getting caught in that instant, it opens extra distance from the predator in the following seconds, and over a longer chase, it tends to exhaust the predator faster than it exhausts the hare, since a pursuing coyote or fox has to fight its own momentum through every one of those turns too. Straight line speed matters less here than people assume. A jackrabbit can hit close to 40 to 45 miles per hour in the open, a European rabbit somewhere around 35, and a cottontail, a species that relies more on nearby cover than open sprinting, usually tops out closer to 18 or 20. But a fox or coyote can often match or beat those numbers over a short sprint. What most predators can't match is the turn. A smaller, lighter body with a more flexible spine can decelerate and redirect faster than a heavier predator, built for sustained speed rather than instant direction changes. The escape isn't one in a straight line. It's 1.5 seconds a pursuing predator spends recovering from a corner it wasn't built to take as tightly. That still leaves one piece unaccounted for. Timing. Zigzagging and turning explain how a rabbit escapes once it's already running. They don't explain when it decides to run in the first place, and that decision turns out to be the closest thing in this entire video to an actual answer to, can rabbits outsmart a predator? In 1986, 2 behavioral ecologists, Ronald Edenberg and Lawrence Dill, published a paper called The Economics of Fleeing from Predators, laying out what's become one of the most influential models in the field. Their argument? An animal that spotted a potential predator doesn't just flee the instant it notices something. It keeps monitoring, weighing 2 costs against each other in real time. The cost of fleeing too early, which is wasted energy and abandoned food, against the cost of fleeing too late, which is death. And the animal breaks towards safety at the exact point those 2 costs cross over. That crossover point has a name in the literature: flight initiation distance, the specific gap between predator and prey at which running finally becomes worth it. Quick pause, because this is the point in the video where the pieces stop being separate facts and start being one argument. A detection system, a getaway mechanism, and now a timing rule, all pointing at the same underlying answer. If that's landing, A-like helps this reach more people who'd want the payoff that's coming next, which is the actual answer to the question in the title. Which brings up misconception number 4, the one about timing itself, that a rabbit's decision to run is pure blind fear, with no logic behind when it happens. No rabbit is doing algebra. But the behavior matches the math closely enough that ecologists can predict, with real accuracy, how close a specific species will let a specific threat get before bolting, based on factors like how far the nearest burrow is, how hungry the rabbit currently is, and how fast the approaching predator tends to move. A rabbit caught out in the open, far from cover, with a fast predator closing in, will typically break earlier. The cost of guessing wrong is simply higher out there. A rabbit a few hops from its burrow, watching a slow-moving threat, will often let it get remarkably close before moving at all, because bolting burns energy and announces its position to every other predator in range, and none of that is worth paying for early. Neither rabbit is thinking through those trade-offs. Both of them are behaving as if they had. That's the actual answer buried in this video's title. A rabbit isn't outsmarting a fox by thinking about it the way a chess player thinks about an opponent. It's running an evolved decision rule that produces the same output a genuinely strategic thinker would arrive at, without any of the thinking. Functionally identical outcome, completely different machinery underneath. A rabbit doesn't outsmart a fox by being smarter. It outsmarts it by being less predictable, and that's a kind of smart no brain has to think about. None of this happens in isolation either. Rabbits live socially, in warrens, and a threat spotted by one rabbit becomes information for every rabbit nearby within seconds. The mechanism is a full-body slam of the hind feet against the ground, foot-thumping, which can register over 100 decibels, comparable to an ambulance siren, and which travels 2 ways at once, as sound through the air for rabbits above ground, and as vibration through the soil for rabbits already underground in the warren, who feel the danger before they could possibly hear it announced. Nearby rabbits often join in almost immediately, each thump adding to the last, turning one animal's detection into a warren-wide alarm within a couple of seconds. Paired with that is the flash of white fur on the underside of a fleeing rabbit's tail, visible only while running, which functions as a visual alarm broadcast to any rabbit that catches sight of it. Not camouflage, but its precise opposite, a signal built to be seen. The detection system isn't just personal, it's networked, and it was networked underground and above ground, in sound and in sight, long before either version of that idea had a name. And underneath all of it sits a strategy that has nothing to do with any individual escape at all. Rabbits are built to reproduce at a rate that makes losing individual animals to predators almost beside the point at the population level. The starkest illustration of that isn't from the wild. It's an accident of colonial history. On Christmas Day, 1859, a British settler named Thomas Austin released a small number of European rabbits, commonly cited as around 2 dozen, onto his property in Victoria, Australia, wanting something familiar to hunt. With no evolved predators on the continent keeping pace with them, that handful of rabbits multiplied into an estimated hundreds of millions within about 90 years, in what's still considered one of the fastest mammal invasions ever documented. By 1950, the damage was severe enough that Australia's National Science Agency, the CSIRO, began deliberately releasing a rabbit-specific virus called myxomatosis along the Murray River to crash the population back down, which worked dramatically at first. The original virus strain killed an estimated 99.8% of infected rabbits, cutting the overall wild population by roughly 95% within a couple of years. Then natural selection did what it always does. Rabbits with any natural resistance to the virus survived to breed. Their resistant offspring outcompeted the rest, and within a few rabbit generations, the virus's effectiveness had measurably declined. Predators, disease, hunters, a virus deliberately engineered against them. Rabbits treat all of it as a rounding error, because the actual survival strategy was never any single rabbit's cleverness. It's arithmetic, running in the background, one litter at a time, the same underlying logic as the zigzag and the flight distance calculation, just running at the level of the whole population instead of one animal's nervous system. So, not a rodent, but a lagomorph. Not a jumpy animal reacting at random, but a network detection system running continuously on independently steerable eyes and ears. Not panic zigzagging, but protean motion, engineered by natural selection to break a predator's ability to predict where the body will be next. Not blind fear about when to run, but a real-time cost calculation that lands, uncannily, in almost the same place actual strategic thinking would. And underneath the individual escapes, a reproduction rate so aggressive it turns predation itself into background noise at the population level. Go back to that opening image. A rabbit, watching a hawk cross the sky directly behind its own skull, without turning its head, blind only to the small gap of space under its own chin. That single detail contains the whole video in miniature. A prey animal that has had every non-essential blind spot engineered out of it, by however many generations didn't. A rabbit doesn't outsmart a fox by being smarter. It outsmarts it by being less predictable. And that's a kind of smart no brain has to think about, running the same way whether or not a single rabbit alive today could explain a word of it. If this changed how you look at the rabbit in your backyard, the one that darted across the road last week, or the one in the cartoon that's apparently been undersold on how impressive it actually is, that's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe if you want the next one of these. Tell me in the comments whether it was the eyes, the turning radius, or the flight distance math that got you. And if you made it this far, a like helps this reach someone who's never thought twice about what a rabbit is actually doing out there, every time it freezes, twitches an ear, and goes still again. One more thing, before you go, that never came up anywhere above. Rabbits eat their own droppings, specifically a soft, nutrient-dense type called a cecotrope, distinct from their regular hard pellets, produced by a second pass of fermentation deep in a pouch called the cecum. It's not a malfunction. Plant matter is hard to fully digest in one pass, and rather than sitting still in the open to chew it slowly and safely the way a cow might, a rabbit that lingers out in a field is a rabbit a hawk has more time to find. So it eats fast, processes the food twice, and often back in the relative safety of the burrow, swallows the cecotropes whole to strip out the vitamins and protein its gut missed the first time. Even digestion, in a rabbit, appears to have been redesigned around the same core problem as everything else in this video. There's always something out there trying to eat you, and every part of the body that can be optimized for that fact, over enough generations, eventually is, right down to how and where and how quickly, it eats its own dinner twice.